Okay, this is the first in our series of the G4 guitar teacher training videos where we're going to keep them strictly to 30 minutes. What we're going to try and do is be a little bit creative and try and get as much information on one narrow topic as possible into a very short period of time. So the clock starts now. Today's topic is going to be how to run a successful workshop. Successful workshops are not necessarily easy to do. It's very easy to do a very boring presentation, do one that nobody wants to come again. And that's the thing that I always had in mind when I did workshops was how do I make sure that they really want to come to the next one as well, that it's so compelling, exciting and fun for them that they want to turn up for the next workshop. So I'm not, in this particular presentation, I'm not going to talk about how to get people to your workshop or how to market it or what prices. So I'm not going to talk about any of that because we only have the half an hour. What I want to do is focus on one part of this, and that's how to actually run the workshop. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to try and get this out. I'm going to do it like a TED Talk, and I'm going to try and get it out in 15 minutes or 18 minutes as they do on TED Talks. Try and get it out then, and then leave the last 10 minutes or so for you guys to ask questions and throw in comments. So I'll just run through it. If you want to write notes, write notes. If you want to write questions, save them until I get to the point where I'll bring you guys into it. So here we go. So the first thing is that you want to try and think in threes. There's a lot of research behind this, and that if you can work things in threes, and I'm going to do this presentation in threes, I'm going to break it into 3 sections, it just makes it easy for you to remember, and also for your audience, makes it easy for them to digest. And when I say in threes, I mean having kind of like a beginning, a middle, and an end as one way of doing it, but also other things like having what I used to do is I would start off with every workshop where I'd work on the easy beginner type level. So I'd have some materials that I could give to everybody and everybody could do. And if there were advanced students in the group in that workshop, you know, it might even be a little bit boring for them in the beginning. But I would assure them that their bit is coming, so just hang in there. And so I would break it into these 3 areas, and so everyone got a section of the workshop, and I'd even tell them in advance. So let's use an example, and again I'll break it into the 3 kinds of workshops that come to mind, and if you guys have got any ideas you can throw them at the end, but 3 kind of workshops that I would run was like a song workshop, and I'm going to give you an example in each case. So a song workshop, a skill workshop, or a theory workshop. So to me are the 3 kind of areas. And when I say theory, it could be not just a theory of music, but it could be the theory of how to, you know, repair a guitar, you know, change the strings. These things I kind of think of theoretical. They're around the edges. They're not actually the playing of the guitar. So let's have a look at song as the first one of these. So an example, I'll use the classic song Stairway to Heaven as an example of how we could break it into 3. So first of all, we can have the very easy part where they're just playing the bass. So instead of, I've got a guitar here, so I'll just quickly show you. And so instead of them playing the whole song, as a beginner level, all you want them to do is play the bass line. So they're just running that down, and you can actually play the whole song while they're just running the bass line down. And then just that would be something that a beginner should be able to do because it's chromatic, as you know, and it's something that everybody can get into. Now, if you've got more sort of intermediate advanced students, even those who know a little bit, you can get them actually doing the first part of it. So they're actually playing the arpeggio. I don't know if you can hear that, but if you can see my fingers, I'm sure you know how it goes. So you've got them playing all the chords. So the medium, if you like, or the guys that are intermediate, what I would do is I would get them just to strum the chords. So simply to hold the chords if they could, and just get them to play those chords. Now, if they had trouble, if you had some who sort of they couldn't get the chord changes in time, just get them to play the first chord, and then maybe the 3rd chord, etc. So they leave out a chord, giving them more time, or even get them to play the 4th chord. Just give them a couple of chords to do that they have time to do the changes and get ready for, and that way it gives them something more to do than just playing the bass line. So they're doing something a little bit more interesting, and this also allows your beginner students to see what the next level is. So even though they're not ready for it, they can see where they're going to go. And then obviously for your advanced students, they can do the whole thing. They don't need to compromise on the intro at all. So that sort of gives you an idea of how to do a song. Now, the next thing that I would talk about the next thing I'm going to talk about is running a skill presentation. A skill presentation would be broken down into three. Well, let me give you three examples again. If I was using a beginner, intermediate, advanced approach. So, let's just say the blue scale. Let's say you did a workshop on the blue scale. So what you'd want is to use, with skills, when you teach skills, there's kind of a reverse here. When we teach songs, then we apply skills. We show them the skills that are required, so these are the chords. But when we teach skills, what you want to do is use songs as examples to exemplify the actual skill. So in this case, the blue scale, the first thing I would do would give a very simple example, and there's probably no simpler example than TNT, which is just playing the first three notes of a blues scale. E.g., E.G.A. So it really doesn't get any simpler than that. So you could give that as a beginner. Everyone can do it. It's fun. It gets them all into the mood. Then if you want to take it to a slightly harder level, then you could do Smoke on the Water, again, which is using the blues scale. It just uses more notes, and it's got a bit of syncopation in there and so forth. And then if you want to take it to a kind of harder level, do something like the intro to Wish You Were Here. That's using the blues scale, but it's taking it up the neck, and it's using double stops, and there's a lot more going on there. It's a lot harder for them to learn, and you might even have sort of Wish You Were Here. It's tabbed out to give to them for those students who can do it. So the third thing is the theory workshop, and again, you're going to have three topics, sort of break it into three, so it's easy to understand for the beginners and then intermediate advanced. So an example I would give here would be, say, intervals, explaining how intervals work for the absolute beginner. You would start on the very basic interval. What's a second? What's a third? What's a fourth? And just explain the concept of what an interval is. And then for the intermediates, you can go to different types of intervals, explaining what the different, perfect fourths and fifths, and major seconds and thirds, etc. So explaining the different types. And then for the more advanced students, you can go on and talk about triads and chords and constructing chords. So even though you're beginners, you get to the end of that workshop and they don't understand what you're talking about by the end, that's okay. Just reassure them they don't need to understand. They got the first part, they got some value out of the workshop, that's great. And then next time, once they understand that, they come to the next workshop and they'll be at the intermediate level and then come to another. So that creates a bit of a repeat for you, so that they come again for a second or third workshop. So that's the first thing. The second thing is preparing handouts. So this is the second part of my presentation here. And so what you want to do is have something that you can give them. I feel that a workshop that's delivered with some kind of handout always feels more substantial. The first thing about a handout is that it makes them feel that they're going to have something to take away. So even if they don't absorb all the information, students feel, well, I've got something that I can refer to and come back to, and they will actually remember a lot more if they've had some kind of sheet, some kind of reference that they can keep referring to throughout the workshop, which they can then take home, that triggers those messages that you gave them through the workshop. So keep it to one page. Here are my 3 points. Number one is to keep it to one page if possible, and break that into like 3 sections and be very concise. Try and, what I did with my sheets was that I would end up doing them probably about 20 times until I got it so concise that I just had what I needed on the absolute minimum, and then I could explain it, because I knew that they didn't need to read it and understand. I didn't have to have a big explanation about where the blue scales came from. I could simply have blue scale, check Wikipedia, or even a short link or a bit.ly link, something like that. The next point is to use it like a script for yourself. So as a benefit to you presenting, it's very helpful, as I'm doing here, I'm looking at my presentation, it's very helpful if you have that sheet that you can then look at. So even though you're giving it to the students, you're also using it to guide yourself through, so you don't get stuck and think, oh, what was I supposed to talk about, where was I? And you're not even needing to have kind of cue cards, because you've got the sheet that everybody's looking at, so you're all on the same page. So it makes it very easy for you to deliver. Number 3 is to, with a handout, give them some homework on it. So give them something to do. Try and, when you give them the sheet, try and make it so that it has a question or a call to action of some type. So when they go home with their worksheet, at the end of the workshop, then they feel, okay, now I've got something to do. Because when they come to the workshop, they want to feel like they've got something out of it, that it was of value. And having that sheet with things to do makes it feel even more valuable, and it is more valuable because you're giving them something to do. And it really helps there as well is to add a link to a web page so that you can then update them on it. So you might say through the workshop, and this happened a lot, where when you're running the workshop, you think of things that you want to add to it or you want to say, and so if you've got a link there specifically for this workshop, you can link those people to the workshop, and then you can go and say, oh, I'm going to add that to that page, or this, I just realized that we could have this on there as well. I'll add it to the page, the website, you've got the link there, it'll be up by tomorrow morning or tomorrow night. So having a link, a web link specifically for this workshop, it also you can make it feel exclusive. You could even add a password to it and make it so that only those people who are in your group, who are at the workshop, can actually go there, and again, that adds value because there's a password just for them. Okay, third part of my presentation, and I'm really telling you this, I wouldn't tell you this if I was presenting in a normal circumstance, but in this case I'm trying to give you a breakdown of how I'm presenting this for you, so you understand how I've done it, so then you can apply it to your own workshops. But I'm condensing this into a 30-minute. You're going to be able to play it out, obviously, a lot longer. And you don't want to run a 30-minute workshop like I'm running here. It's a little bit different. You really do want to run a longer workshop, even a 90-minute workshop. It's a bit different to what we're talking about, a TED Talk or a presentation, because in a workshop, people actually need time to do the work. And that's the difference with a workshop. So I do want to make that distinction here. Okay, so the third section here is your delivery. Number one is to make sure that you're standing in a workshop, and don't, I've seen some people present workshops where they're sitting with their guitar because that's how they're used to, and I've seen them teaching groups. It's better to stand. Number one, it gives you in a higher position and creates a sense of authority. It's like people are looking to you, they're listening to you, you're the one who's running the class. When you're sort of sitting down, it makes it harder for the people at the back to make eye contact with you, especially if you've got a large group. And it just seems a bit more laid back. It's not as exciting. Imagine going and watching a Queen concert with Freddie Mercury sitting in a chair the whole time. It wouldn't have the same impact. You want the person who's up there to be animated, to be larger than life. You really want to take the stage, and don't be afraid to be the star of the show, because that's what they're there for. They're there to listen and learn from you, and you need to really be up there and front and center. So stand and deliver with confidence. Number two is prepare some slides if you can. Now, if you can have a screen with slides, that's great, and you can get projectors, and you can even hire them. You don't have to buy one. They're not that expensive anyway these days, but if you just want to hire one occasionally to do a workshop, they really can make an impact. And just something about slides, which is really important, is don't use slides with lots of text on it. The idea of a slide should be either the information that they need in that situation, maybe it's a bit of tab or a chord shape or something like that. If you can put those kind of things up on slides, that will make your workshop look a lot more professional, and it'll make it more memorable. And studies have been done where they actually show that people will remember visual, because this is the way our brains are wired. We will remember a visual for a lot longer and a lot more vividly than we will something that's a text or spoken to us. So visual pictures will make all the difference. So if you can get some slides and put them up there, that would be great. Now, if you don't have that facility or you're not ready for that, what you can do is just maybe have a couple of printouts. Even if you can do some bigger ones, that would be good. Okay, and the third thing there is treat it like anything, like writing a song, developing your teaching. Treat it like a product. Don't do a one-off workshop with the idea of this is a one-off workshop and that's it. Because when it's a one-off and you're doing it for half a dozen people or 10 people or 20 people, whatever, when you do a very short one-time show, you're not going to rehearse for it so much, and you're not going to develop it so well and put it, because you realize that it's a lot of effort for something that's not going to be very long. And that's one of the things that I found early on when I did workshops, because I took that attitude of, okay, we'll just do a workshop on this topic because people interested, so I'd do a workshop. And then I thought, this is a lot of work just for, one, 90-minute session, because, I would sometimes take weeks to prepare for it. But then what I realized is if I think of it differently, think of it as an ongoing product. So if you do, say, a blues workshop or a Stairway to Heaven workshop, that's something you can repeat every 6 months. So what you want to do is think about it, okay, this is my first run of this particular workshop. I'm going to be thinking about developing and improving, and it's the same way that I did the G4 method. It was always about, okay, how can I improve this, make it better? And if you have that approach of constantly improving it, then your first draft is just that. It's a chance to get it out there, try it out, see what works and what doesn't work, and then develop it and improve it so you can do that same workshop again in 6 months. And remember, you've got your beginner, intermediate, advanced students. Your advanced students might not need to come again. They may want to, but your beginners definitely will want to come again, because now they're at the intermediate stage, and that's where you've led them into that already. You say, okay, this is a beginner, come to the same workshop again in 6 months, and you'll be ready for the intermediate level. So if you think of it in those terms, you're going to develop it, you're going to practice it as well. Make sure you practice your delivery, and then repeat it. Okay, so just to recap on those 3 points, the three things that I've said all together. Number one is create 3 parts. So make it, the aim is to have an easy, an intermediate, a medium if you like, and a hard, so that everybody in your workshop gets something out of your workshop. You're not just catering for one group. And you've got 3 kinds of workshops, which is a song, a skill, or a theory. The second thing is to prepare handouts. So, as I said there, I'll just repeat my notes. 1 page if possible, 3 sections, and be concise. 2 is to use it like a script for you to remind you. And 3, include some homework or a link to a web page. And third thing is your delivery, of course. And this is probably the most important part. Even a little bit of information delivered well will have a lot more impact than trying to, have lots of really good information but really poor delivery, because people just won't be interested. You'll bore them to tears. So stand and deliver with confidence. Prepare some slides, if possible, very powerful slides, and treat it like I said, like writing a song. Develop, practice, and repeat. Okay, what have I done now? I've managed to do it in pretty good time. I think 17 minutes. So I'm right on track, which is good. And obviously I prepared for it, so I was trying to get it into that time frame. So questions, comments. It's to you guys now. We've got good 10 minutes here now. Does anyone want to ask a question? I can throw it back to you. Yes, Paul, go.
I'll throw in a question. My next workshop I was thinking of doing was a Frozen workshop, and it's actually helped we've just said, because I was actually thinking about how I'd level it, like say the beginning, intermediate, advanced, and that sort of thing. I like the idea as well of doing a web page. I quite like that, and doing a WordPress page and having comments in it so you can keep the conversation kind of going. I quite like that.
Yep.
I like that very much. All right. So a question might be. Would you think it'd be worth then trying to keep all your workshops so anyone can come, beginner, intermediate, advanced, or would you try and level them so this is an advanced workshop on string skipping or sweeping or something like that, and this is a beginner one on basic chord changing? So then you're alienating some of your kind of students, or would you try and open up a more generic one to everyone?
You can do both. If you feel you've got enough students in a particular kind of narrow. And especially if you've got a lot of beginner students, then you really want your workshop to be focused on beginner, maybe to intermediate, not advanced students. But if if sort of they're developing as you get further down the track, and you've got a lot of intermediate to advanced kind of students. When I say advanced, let's just say students who can handle a harder level rather than advanced. So if you've got those more progressive students, then if you've got enough numbers to do a workshop on a specific area, then yeah, do it. It really comes down to numbers and who you're catering for. G4 as it is tends to cater for mostly beginners, so that's where, and I think opening up the workshop to having some information, I still think beginners benefit from seeing what intermediate and advanced students do and learn, because it shows them the path and it can inspire them to say, well, okay, I'm here now, that's where I'll be. And I did several workshops where, I did, for example, a Hotel California workshop, and I remember that, teaching the beginners just some very basic chords, and then getting towards the end of it and teaching, the proper arpeggio introduction. They were just sitting there really impressed and enjoying it. They were just enjoying watching. And there's only, I think, in most cases, only a couple of students who were up to the advanced level, but most of the students were quite enjoying watching it. So, yeah. So it's inspiration for them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We can go on with that, but does anyone else have a question? Okay, cool. We've still got time. Yeah, Ben.
I was going to say maybe a question around what time you'd start doing workshops, because when you said you could do this, you could do that, I was thinking specifically when you said the beginner students were happy watching while the advanced students were playing. Maybe I'm putting myself down here, but I don't know how confident my students are in me yet. I still feel like we're at the early stages of relationships, but I don't know if the beginner students would think, oh, this is really interesting, or why did I come to this? Now I'm just sitting here. So there is definitely a balance there.
Yeah, and it's good to, and I know what you're saying, it's good to look at, the possibilities, because you may very well have some students who sit there thinking, well, what can I do? But what I would do is I would keep them doing things. So I wouldn't just have them sitting there. I would say, keep working on that chord for me while I was sort of working with the intermediates. If I could see they were really kind of interested in enjoying watching what the other students are doing, I wouldn't do that. But if they were looking bored, I'd say keep working on the that beginner exercise that I gave you. Keep going, because this is a workshop. We're here to work, guys. Let's get the most out of this workshop and really sort of see how far you can take it in 90 minutes.
So for maybe an early one, it would be best if you had something that had maybe 2 guitars or a good easy bass line, so that you can have something that goes the whole time for the beginners, rather than keep practicing that, but we'll move on to the next section of the song in which that's tonally completely different.
Yeah, so you can tie the whole thing in. So if you've got, something like, I'll give you the example that I was using with the guys doing Hotel California. So I'd be playing the arpeggio, playing that part. So I would just ask the beginners, just play the bass note for me. Okay, everybody just play the bass note, bang. All right, and then those who can play the chord, just strum the chord for me. And that was kind of the intermediates, and then to the advanced, okay, you guys, you can play the arpeggio with me. And then, so then we go to the next chord, and so forth and so forth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, entirely.
Yeah. So you're keeping them involved, but you're not putting them in the deep end and giving them something that's too hard to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And see, one of the things that happens, there's actually a phenomenon where when we put ourselves out there and do something that's outside of our comfort zone and sort of scary or risky, and we actually get through the other side without being killed or hurt or mortally wounded or embarrassed to the point of never wanting to return, we actually get an exhilaration. We feel good. And one of the things that I noticed about concerts and workshops, these two situations, was how the students were so excited at the end. They were literally bouncing off the walls with excitement, because they were kind of a bit shy, a bit nervous, not sure what it was all about. But by the end of it, they were able to do something, even if it was something little, and they'd gotten through the workshop, if it was a performance, they'd gotten on the stage and actually had done a performance and came off the stage, and there was this kind of feeling of exhilaration. It's similar to going on a roller coaster ride for the first time. It's a bit scary, and you're going up and down, and then you get off to the end, and you feel really good. You get that sort of run of adrenaline, if you like, or endorphins. So don't be afraid to push your students out of their comfort zones, because they will remember you a lot more if you do. If you just let them sit in their comfort zone all the time, then that might seem nice, and it might seem, well, I want to keep, don't want to upset the student, don't want to scare them off. Most people are coming to coaches of any kind to get them to push. My teachers did it to me. My best teachers my most memorable teachers. They pushed me out of my comfort zone. They made me do things that I probably wouldn't have done at the time. My first performance at 14 years of age on the drums, I was so scared. Absolutely, I was sick with nerves and fear. But I realized I had to do it. I had no choice. The teacher didn't give me a choice, so I went and did it, and then after that, there was no looking back. I'd made it through the other side alive. And I was incidentally reading about Richard Branson today, you guys being in the UK, about how he was sick to the stomach for his first speech. He was terribly ill, and he said it was the most embarrassing experience of his life, and he went away from it with the idea that he's really going to work hard and prepare and become a good public speaker. And as we know, he's a very confident public speaker these days, but that's not how he was in the beginning. So the message there is to push your students out of your comfort zone and don't tread too softly all the time, especially if you know that they need a push.
Yeah.
All right. You will have more impact on people if you do that. You'll be more memorable as well as a teacher.
Good.
We've got a couple more minutes. We've got 3 or 4 more minutes. Trevor, did you want to ask any questions?
Yeah, actually, I was just thinking, with the idea of using workshops, what about opening them up to people who aren't already students? I mean, is it a useful thing to use it as a promotional thing? Especially if you've got some kind of handout maybe, or some kind of incentive to get people to come along as a kind of way of dipping their toe in the water sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. A workshop is the perfect opportunity to say to a student, if you've got a friend who are either interested in playing guitar or already plays guitar, then come along to a workshop. Most workshops aren't going to be that great for someone who's never picked up a guitar before, but they could be a way for somebody to come along and have a look. And I would even say, some of my students, if you've got a friend that's interested in learning guitar and they haven't learned guitar before, look, here's a free ticket. They can come along to the workshop. It's normally $45, but I know that they're not a student. They're not learning yet, so just bring them on, and that way they can see that I can meet them. They can see how we operate, and they can just sit in a chair over on the side and watch what happens. So it's great. It's a great opportunity to bring other students in, and to even gain a bit of publicity for your school, because it gives you just another thing. The more kind of events and things that go on, the more people will have reason to talk about you. There's nothing better than a local social event that gets students talking. And so if you've got a few students who all go to the same school and you have a workshop on Friday night, for a 10-year-old kid, a 7 o'clock workshop on a Friday night, it's pretty exciting. So you got a few kids at school that are talking about, we're going to the workshop tonight up at G4. Then the word starts to get about, people start to talk about it, and this creates more kind of buzz around your business.
Because I seem to remember as well talking about maybe taking workshops into schools, and doing maybe vouchers for lesson vouchers as a kind of giveaway thing, and maybe going in and doing it more as a demonstration maybe than actually getting people to try and play the guitar if they've never done it before, but going in and maybe demonstrating something.
Yeah. That's kind of a promo. I'd talk about that in a different a hangout, but yeah, that's more of a promo thing rather than an actual workshop. What I do want to do is because we're going to have lots of these short hangouts. The next hangout that I think that we should have around this topic, we will probably have a few others because some of the other guys have topics as well. But the next one I would tag onto this would be, how to promote your workshop, how to actually get people there and fill it up each and every time. So is that sound like something you guys want to talk about for next time, for another hangout?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Sounds good.
All right. Fantastic. All right, our 30 minutes is up, so you've got plenty to sort of think about. And I'll actually throw those notes up on Hangout as well, in Facebook, so you can copy them straight off there if you want. All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, David. See you later.
Bye, guys.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Thanks, David. Cheers. Bye-bye.
See you, Trevor.